Bay County in northwest Florida is where you will find the four-season paradise known as Panama City. It's also where you can still find the small aquatic-dependent crayfish by the same name, at least for now. The Panama City crayfish is a small brown crustacean with dark brown to black and light brown to tan stripes that, along with a series of reddish-brown dots on each side, define their approximately 2-inch long body. This species will typically spend 1.5 to 3.5 years sharing its wet flatwoods and other human-altered settings, such as roadside ditches and utility rights-of-way, with area residents and tourists who find themselves in the same 56-square-mile range they call home. Though several potential threats exist to the Panama City crayfish, the main threat to this species, like so many others, is the elimination of their habitat, due in part to ongoing residential and commercial development. Because of their restricted range area, this also makes the species vulnerable to extinction from natural and environmental catastrophes such as hurricanes and oil spills. Enter Hurricane Michael. The Category 5 storm in October of 2018 that caused catastrophic damage throughout northwest Florida, but specifically to the Panama City and Mexico Beach areas due to its maximum sustained winds in excess of 160 miles per hour and a storm surge of more than 14 feet. Though understandably necessary, the housing redevelopment required in the aftermath of the storm became a major concern to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service due to potential impacts it would have on prime conservation lands. In December of 2018, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, together with representatives from Bay County, worked to develop a recovery strategy for the Panama City crayfish.
So we have a four-pronged approach for recovery for the Panama City crayfish. That first approach is, of course, we need land acquired for the species into perpetuity. We also have a lot of land has been restored after Hurricane Michael, so it's been cleared. That prong is in pretty good shape for most sites. The third prong is ownership of the land, and that's going to be dependent on who purchases or acquires the property. But the fourth prong was our most challenging, and that is where we reached out to our partners, the Florida Department of Transportation.
The Florida Department of Transportation and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service have had a really strong partnership over the years. So when Patty called to ask how we might be able to support recovery of the Panama City crayfish by supporting the endowment through their plan, we asked her what that might look like. We'd already been working with the service on implementing conservation measures along our roadside ditches to support recovery of the species, but the endowment was something new to us, and we thought we might be able to support that.
As part of its participation in the NEPA assignment program, the Florida Department of Transportation, a state agency, assumes federal responsibility for conducting species consultations on transportation projects under Section 7A1 of the Endangered Species Act.
So the Florida Department of Transportation decided to conduct a cost-benefit analysis to see if we might be able to support the recovery of the Panama City crayfish. We looked at how much project-by-project consultation through the Endangered Species Act might cost compared to supporting the endowment. So our projects over the long term, we were definitely going to see a cost-benefit by supporting the endowment and recovery of the species, as well as continuing to implement the conservation measures we have been doing on our right-of-way. As further outlined in the programmatic approach, the action area includes all transportation right-of-way under DOT jurisdiction within the range of the Panama City crayfish, and additional nearby lands needed for future transportation right-of-way and stormwater facilities. It also gives DOT coverage for future actions including clearing, repaving of existing roads, construction of new paved areas, landscaping improvements, maintenance activities, and any other improvements required to maintain the integrity of the roadway system.
Though FDOT is no longer required to conduct species surveys or relocations, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is permitted to relocate crayfish ahead of construction if they choose. Additionally, FDOT will continue to maintain roadside ditches to support crayfish habitat, will avoid impacts to critical habitat with our pond siding, and will make a substantial monetary contribution to the Crayfish Endowment through the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation to support long-term management of conservation lands.
Our overall mission and goal with the Panama City crayfish is to get it and other imperiled species to the point where we no longer need to protect them under the Endangered Species Act.
The unique nature of this programmatic approach and biological opinion have reduced the need for future consultations that are costly and can take a lot of time to complete.
Safe to say, this is a win-win for both agencies and their respective missions. But it's an even bigger win for a 2-inch long crayfish from Panama City that calls paradise home.